When a billionaire's deadly greed leaves Abby's neighbor dead, the only man standing between her and the killer is the rugged sheriff she never quite forgot. Welcome back to Kiss of Suspense. The Utah sun beat down on the Wasatch Mountains, casting long golden shadows through the dense groves of trembling aspens. Abby adjusted the brim of her tan Stetson, shifting her weight in the saddle as her buckskin gelding, Magic, picked his way up the rocky incline. She wore a crisp white tank top that contrasted with her sun-kissed skin, snug brown leggings perfect for a long ride, and scuffed tan cowboy boots that had seen their fair share of dirt and stirrups. A gold pendant rested against her collarbone, catching the light, while a stack of leather bracelets swayed on her wrist. Around her waist, she had tied a brown and white plaid shirt, anticipating the sharp drop in temperature that always accompanied the mountain evenings. Abby breathed in the scent of pine and dry earth, seeking the peace that the high trails usually brought her. Her family's ranch lay in the valley below, a sprawling property that had been in her family for 3 generations. But today, the mountains offered no solace. Magic snorted, his ears pinning back abruptly. He stopped, stamping a front hoof. "Easy, boy," Abby murmured, patting his warm neck. "What is it? Rattler?" She urged him forward, but Magic sidestepped, refusing to advance past a dense thicket of scrub oak. Frowning, Abby dismounted. She tied Magic's reins securely to a sturdy pine branch and pushed her way through the brush. In a small clearing, hidden from the main trail, she found him. It was Silas Vance. The old man lived on the property bordering hers to the north. He was a notoriously mean, cantankerous recluse who had spent the last 3 decades in a bitter, litigious war with the city council over property lines and municipal ordinances. Abby's breath caught in her throat. Silas was lying on his back, his cloudy eyes staring unblinking at the canopy above. A dark, dried stain marred the front of his faded denim shirt. He was dead. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced her chest. She reached instinctively for her back pocket to grab her phone, her fingers trembling. No service. She would have to ride down to the ridgeline to get a signal, or better yet, straight back to the ranch. Snap! The sound of a heavy branch breaking echoed sharply in the quiet woods. Abby froze. The wind had died down. That wasn't a natural sound. She slowly turned her head. 30 yards away, deep in the shadows of the pines, a silhouette shifted. A chill washed over her, freezing the blood in her veins. She wasn't alone. Adrenaline surged. Abby didn't wait to see who, or what, was watching her. She spun on her heel, tearing through the brush. Brambles snagged her leggings and scratched her arms, but she barely felt them. She threw herself onto Magic's back, not even bothering to properly seat herself before she dug her heels in. "Hyah!" she shouted. Magic bolted down the mountain trail. The descent was dangerously steep, but Abby gave him his head, trusting his sure-footedness. Over the pounding of hooves and her own ragged breathing, she could swear she heard the heavy, rhythmic thud of a horse in pursuit. The distinct feeling of eyes burning into her back made her urge Magic faster, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Abby didn't slow down until the red roof of her ranch house came into view. She rode Magic straight into the barn, practically threw his reins into his stall, and sprinted for the house. She slammed the heavy oak door shut behind her, twisting the deadbolt and locking the chain. Her hands shook violently as she grabbed the landline from the kitchen wall. She dialed 911, her voice cracking as she reported the murder. 10 excruciating minutes later, tires crunched on the gravel driveway. Abby peered through the kitchen blinds. A white SUV with the county sheriff's star emblazoned on the door was parked out front. When she opened the door, she was met by a chest as broad as a barn door, clad in a crisp tan uniform. "Abby!" a deep, familiar voice rumbled. She looked up into the striking blue eyes of Liam Thorne. They had dated in high school, a fiery, intense romance that had burned out when he left for the military. Now he was back as the county sheriff, Time had been incredibly kind to him. His uniform strained against muscle-bulging arms and a wide chest, his jawline covered in a rugged dark stubble. He looked capable, dangerous, and, at this moment, entirely comforting. "Liam!" she breathed, the remaining strength leaving her legs. He caught her by the elbows before she could sway, his large hands warm and steady. "I've got you. Tell me exactly what happened." Sitting at her kitchen table, a mug of sweet tea trembling in her hands, Abby recounted the ride, finding Silas, the snapped branch, and the terrifying flight down the mountain. Liam listened intently, his expression hardening into a mask of professional focus, though his eyes betrayed a deep, protective concern. "Saddle up," Liam said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "We're going back up there. I need to secure the scene before it gets dark." The ride back up the mountain was tense. Abby rode Magic, while Liam trailed closely on his massive black gelding. The sun was beginning its descent, casting long, eerie shadows across the trail. "It was right through here," Abby said, her voice hushed as they reached the scrub oak thicket. Liam dismounted, drawing his sidearm with a smooth, practiced motion. "Stay behind me." He parted the brush, stepping into the clearing. Abby followed, bracing herself for the gruesome sight. But there was nothing. Abby gasped, stepping out from behind Liam. The clearing was empty. There was no Silas Vance, no blood. "He was here," Abby said, her voice rising in panic. She pointed to a patch of ground. "Right there! Look!" Liam crouched down, his sharp eyes scanning the earth. He holstered his weapon and ran a hand over the flattened, matted grass. "I believe you, Abby. The grass is crushed, and there are scuff marks in the dirt. Something heavy was dragged away from here. Recently." "Why would someone move a body?" she whispered, wrapping her arms around herself, suddenly acutely aware of the vast, darkening woods surrounding them. "To buy time," Liam said grimly, standing up, "or to hide the evidence. Come on. It's getting dark, and whoever did this knows you saw it. We need to get you back to the ranch." That night, a summer storm rolled over the Wasatch Range, bringing fierce winds that rattled the windows of Abby's ranch house. Liam had refused to leave. He set up a command post of sorts at her kitchen island, a pot of black coffee brewing, while he reviewed old county maps and property disputes on his laptop. Abby, unable to sleep, paced the living room. The image of Silas's dead eyes kept flashing in her mind, replaced quickly by the terrifying sensation of being hunted on the mountain. Around 2 a.m., the wind briefly died down. In the sudden quiet, a distinct sound echoed from the back of the house. Clink. Scrape. It was the sound of metal on metal at the back patio door. Liam was on his feet instantly, a finger to his lips, signaling Abby to stay put. He drew his weapon, moving with shocking silence for a man of his size. He slipped down the hallway, melting into the shadows. Abby held her breath, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She gripped a heavy iron fireplace poker, ready to swing. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the patio, followed by a heavy thud and the sound of boots scrambling against the wooden deck. Liam threw open the back door, shouting a command, but by the time Abby reached the kitchen, the intruder was gone, swallowed by the stormy night. Liam stood on the deck, his gun lowered, staring out toward the outbuildings. He got away, but he was trying to force the lock. He dropped a pry bar. He turned to look at Abby, his jaw tight. "He didn't come to silence you. If he wanted to do that, he would have broken a window and started shooting. He was trying to sneak in. Or he was trying to draw our attention." Liam's eyes darted toward the large red barn sitting 50 yards from the house. One of the massive sliding doors, which Abby meticulously secured every night, was swaying slightly in the wind, a good 2 feet open. "Stay here," Liam ordered. "Not a chance," Abby replied, her grip tightening on the iron poker. "That's my barn." Together, they crossed the rain-slicked yard, the beams of Liam's heavy-duty flashlight cutting through the downpour. Liam pushed the heavy barn door open, the rollers screaming in protest. The smell of sweet hay and leather hit Abby, comforting and familiar. Magic nickered nervously from his stall. Liam swept the flashlight across the central aisle. Clear. They walked deeper into the barn, toward the back where the tractor and hay bales were stored. The flashlight beam swept over a stack of alfalfa, and Abby let out a stifled scream, covering her mouth with her hand. Laying perfectly arranged on top of a fresh tarp, amidst the hay bales, was Silas Vance. His body hadn't just been moved, it had been delivered. Liam cursed softly, stepping in front of Abby to shield her from the sight. "Why here?" he muttered, shining the light around the area, looking for footprints. "Why bring him to your property?" Abby forced herself to look. She noticed something protruding from Silas's stiff, rigid hand, a piece of paper. She pointed it out to Liam. Using a pen from his pocket, Liam carefully pried the paper from the dead man's fingers. He unfolded it under the beam of his flashlight. It was a standard county-issued topographic map. But heavy black marker had been drawn over it, circling Silas Vance's property and Abby's ranch. Written across the bottom in block letters were the words, "Sell or else." "Liam," Abby whispered, the pieces suddenly clicking into place. Silas's beef with the city. It wasn't just about property lines. It was about the reservoir. The runoff from the mountain feeds the creek that runs through his land, and then mine. Liam looked at her, his eyes narrowing. "Water rights." "Exactly," Abby said, her mind racing. "A month ago, I got a ridiculously high offer for the ranch from a holding company. I turned it down. I heard Silas got an offer too. He probably threatened to shoot whoever brought him the paperwork." "Who owns the holding company?" Liam asked. "Sterling Enterprises," Abby said, the name tasting like ash in her mouth. "Richard Sterling, the billionaire developer from Salt Lake. He wants to build a massive luxury ski resort on the back of this mountain, but he needs the water rights to sustain it." Liam stared down at the map. "Silas wouldn't sell, so Sterling had him killed. And bringing the body here, with this note. It's a warning. If you don't sell, you're next, and they frame you for Silas's murder in the meantime." The wind howled outside, violently rattling the barn doors. "Sterling's a powerful man," Liam said, his voice low and dangerous. "He'll have expensive lawyers and a dozen alibis. We can't just arrest him on a hunch and a dropped pry bar." "We don't have to," Abby said, her eyes flashing with a sudden, fierce resolve. She stepped closer to Liam, feeling the reassuring heat radiating from him. "The man who dropped that pry bar, the man who moved the body, he was on foot. He couldn't have gotten far in this storm. He has to have a vehicle parked down on the county road." Liam's face broke into a grim, predatory smile. "You're right. He's stranded." Leaving the barn locked and secured behind them, they sprinted back to Liam's cruiser. Liam threw it into gear, and they tore down the long dirt driveway, fishtailing in the mud. 2 miles down the dark, winding county road, they spotted it, a black, mud-splattered SUV, parked deep in the shadow of a billboard. Liam killed the headlights, rolling the cruiser to a silent stop 100 yards away. "Stay in the car, Abby. I mean it this time." Abby watched, her heart in her throat, as Liam stepped out into the rain, his gun drawn. He moved with the lethal grace of a predator, closing the distance to the SUV. Suddenly, the driver's side door of the black SUV flew open. A man in dark tactical gear stepped out, raising a handgun toward Liam. "Drop it!" Liam roared over the storm. The man fired. Abby screamed as the muzzle flash illuminated the rain. Liam dropped to a knee, returning fire. 2 deafening cracks echoed through the valley. The man in black stumbled backward, dropping his weapon, and collapsed into the mud. Liam was on him in seconds, kicking the gun away and securing the man's hands with zip ties. Abby scrambled out of the cruiser, running toward them. Liam was breathless but unhurt. He hauled the groaning man to his feet, flashing his light in his face. It was one of Richard Sterling's private security contractors, a man Liam recognized from a previous run-in at the county courthouse. Looks like Mr. Sterling is going to have a hard time explaining why his head of security is running around in the mud, with a murdered man's blood on his boots, Liam growled, shoving the contractor against the side of the SUV. As the wail of backup sirens finally pierced the stormy night, Liam turned to Abby. The rain plastered his dark hair to his forehead, and his chest heaved. He reached out, his large, rough hand gently cupping her face. "You're safe now," he said softly, the fierce sheriff melting away to reveal the boy who had loved her years ago. Abby leaned into his touch, her hand coming up to rest over his heart, feeling its steady, powerful beat. "I know," she smiled,